as you know, the Hitlerian Youth 2.0 continue to run amok on the streets of Canada, particularly in Toronto. And so we have these ongoing pro-terror protests happening all the time. And instead of taking a firm stance against that, as you know, last week, the pro-Hamas protesters were protesting on the lawn of a Toronto area synagogue. And the Liberals, being completely unable to read the room, have decided to continue to cozy up to not just terrorist sympathizers, but now actual terrorists. Let's show this tweet from Melanie Joly. She our global affairs minister. Is that what we call them now? Surprised she doesn't have me blocked. Yeah, Minister of Foreign Affairs. Sometimes it's global affairs. Yeah, shockingly, she doesn't have me blocked, but she is in the West Bank with Yara Sachs. Sorry, I should say Judea and Samaria, with Yara Sachs of Hong Kong is Heil Hitler fame. One of the more crazy people in the Liberal caucus, if that were actually possible, but she is one of the more ridiculous ones in the caucus. And this is our foreign affairs minister. And Yara Sachs, who's like a associate minister of something. So she's not really all that significant. I'm not sure why she's there, except that she is a self-flagellating Jew. You see, she's a human shield for Justin Trudeau, because they can say, of course it's okay to meet with Mahmoud Abbas. Can't you see he met, Yara Sachs didn't have a problem with meeting him, and she's Jewish. But anyway, they met with President Mahmoud Abbas to discuss the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. Well, I can tell you why there's a humanitarian crisis in Gaza. They take all their aid dollars and spend it on terrorism, tunnels, and the like. And the future governance of the Palestinian Authority, and to work to advance a two-state solution. Yeah, there is a two-state solution already, Israel and Jordan. That was already determined a long time ago. But look at the first date hand-holding courtship nonsense that's going on here with Abbas and Yara Sachs. She's clutching him. There's no way in hell I would be caught dead with on a first date hand-holding thing with Mahmoud Abbas. Let me tell you a little bit about this guy. I think he's on year 19 of his 4-year term. So he's a dictator, but I think since October 7th, he has added, I think it's 23,000 people, martyrs, to the pay for slay scheme. Now, for those of you who don't know what pay for slay is, if you are a Palestinian terrorist and you commit an act of terrorism against the Israelis, you get paid for it. If you get killed, even better, your family gets a lump sum payment and then payments in perpetuity. If you are arrested and held for your acts of terrorism by the Israelis in an Israeli jail, you get even more money. You get, I think there's 3,000 more of those added to the terrorist pay list. And so that's where all your Western aid dollars go. So when they say, we're giving money to the PLO for this humanitarian crisis, that's not where it goes. It goes to pay for terrorists who are incentivized to do terrorism, by the way. When the Israelis pulled out of Gaza, it was a bit like the Riviera. Lots of hotels and resorts and greenhouses. And when the Israelis turned it over to, Hamas, ostensibly, none of that infrastructure was used. In fact, they pulled apart a lot of that infrastructure to commit terrorism. Instead of growing food for themselves in the greenhouses and farms the Israelis left behind, they let it fall into disrepair and gutted the rest for terrorism. And then instead of using the resort communities to sort of become the Riviera of the Muslim world. They just decided that we don't need to do that because we're engaged in this struggle against the Zionist state. They could have had something for themselves, but they did not. And so now the economy is completely depressed in these areas. And, as much as the Israelis try in some of the other Palestinian controlled territories with these, and we visited them when we were there in Israel last year, there are these industrial parks where Israelis and Palestinians work in the factories together. And it is sort of like peace through economic development. And Hamas and the other more radical parts of Palestinian leadership, they really hate those because they don't want you talking to each other, and they don't want Palestinians to make a fair wage in an Israeli factory because you got to keep these people poor so that it becomes an economic strategy to commit terrorism. If you don't have a good paying job in an Israeli factory, well, how do you pay the bills? Well, you don't. You might be dead as a martyr if you committed an act of terrorism, but your family will be well off after you're gone. And so, the Palestinian government, and, also in Gaza, they take steps to keep the Palestinians poor because then that incentivizes terrorism. And so that's what Mahmoud Abbas does. And so these two absolutely horrific women who would probably describe themselves as feminists are holding hands with this guy who is giving money to the families of Hamas rapists. Good job, girls. And so close to International Women's Day or whatever fake holiday we just passed. We also, I don't know if maybe Olivia, I'm putting you on the spot to bring this up. Yara Sachs is, I think, one of the most despicable people in the Liberal caucus. This one, thank you. Yara Sachs. Women and children are the most vulnerable to violence in conflict. Yeah, 1,200 Israelis know that. And the 240 kidnapped victims of Hamas also know that, where rape was used as a crime against them, where I've spoken to people who watch the body camera footage that the Hamas terrorists recorded of themselves committing acts of extreme sexual violence. And they said it was the absolute worst thing they have ever seen and that it would live with them forever. But if we can bring that tweet back up real quick. This is Yara Sachs, a Jewish Canadian Liberal MP. And she is, I guess, bolstering the blood libel of this nonsense that Israeli soldiers are the ones going around in rape gangs, saying that Canada is providing $1 million to support investigations of allegations of sexual and gender-based violence against Palestinian women. This is absolutely atrocious. By the way, this is just probably this $1 million is also going to end up in the hands of the Hamas rapists of Israeli women. Likely, not a penny of it will be spent on investigating non-existent crimes committed by Israeli soldiers. I thank our Canadian team in Ramallah for their dedicated work on the ground. We will always believe women, except if they're Israelis, I suppose.